Hi everyone, welcome back. Today I'm going to do the Pixar Book Tag, which I was tagged to do by Matt over at This Is Me, who also created this book tag. It seems like such a fun book tag to do. He's created really great questions. I don't really know why no one's ever done a Pixar book tag before, but he's jumped on it and I'm really excited to do it. I will link a few people down below who I tagged to do this video, but also if you want to do it, just go ahead and do it. It seems really fun. I tag you. So the first question is Cars. Name a book in which the characters go on a long physical journey. So for this question, my answer is going to be Us by David Nicholls. So this is a hilarious, but also quite poignant and emotionally touching novel about a man called Douglas who's in his 50s, and one day his wife of 25 years turns around to him and says that she wants to end their marriage. He does not want this to happen, and in a bid to save their marriage and also kind of salvage a relationship with his 17-year-old son Albie, he takes the family on a grand tour of Europe. So the characters in this novel definitely go on a long physical journey, and that was actually one of my favourite aspects of the novel. So seeing all the different countries they visited, and also more subtly the different cultures they kind of experienced through different foods, through different music, literature, and just different people's perspectives. I just thought that was really, really fascinating. Through witnessing these characters' journeys, I loved seeing the way the family dynamics were presented in this novel. I thought it was so accurate and often kind of painfully realistic, and I just thought that was so clever. And David Nicholls is a brilliant writer, so I definitely recommend picking this up if you haven't picked anything up by him yet. The second question is Inside Out, name a book about the mind. So for this question I'm going to answer with The Martian by Andy Weir, which, while it may not primarily be about the mind, I'd say that it counts because it's certainly very introspective. So this is a sci-fi novel that tells the story of Mark Watney, who's an astronaut, and after being the first man to step foot on Mars, is accidentally stranded there alive due to a dust storm that causes his crew to have to emergency evacuate, and they believe he's dead. So Mark is completely alone on this planet, and he's got no way to communicate with Earth to let them know he's still alive. So while he's trying to figure out how to do this, he's got to use his scientific and engineering skills and just his general ingenuity to kind of figure out how to make his resources last a long time so he doesn't die of starvation before he can communicate with Earth. So we primarily read this novel through Mark's point of view as we read the diary entries that he keeps over the weeks and months that he's left on this planet on his own, and it's genuinely one of the best first-person perspectives I've ever read from. Mark is so clever and so hilarious, and so reading this novel from his point of view was so much fun, but he's also quite typically masculine in a lot of ways, and so seeing the way that he dealt with this isolation mentally was really fascinating. This novel is action-filled, intelligent, but also hilarious, and it has really brilliant characters, so I'd really recommend picking this up if you're looking for a fun standalone. Question 3 is Monsters Inc. Who or what is your most lovable book creature? And for this, I've just got to answer Pan the Demon from the His Dark Materials trilogy by Philip Pullman. So this YA fantasy trilogy is one of the best fantasy trilogies out there, and I think it's really brilliant for people of all ages as well, both younger kids and also adults. And in this magical world, humans have demons, which are kind of like companion creatures that reflect one's inner being, and I just think this is so fascinating. Pan is Lyra, the protagonist's demon, and he reflects her in so many different ways, and the bond they share is so interesting and so special and so intricate, and I'd just be so interested to see what my demon would look like. That would be amazing. Question 4 is Finding Nemo, who is the best book dad? For me, the answer to this question came straight away, and it is, without a doubt, Atticus Finch from To Kill a Mockingbird. To Kill a Mockingbird is probably my favourite novel of all time, and Atticus has always had a special place in my heart, and I just love the way he interacts with his children, and every time I reread it, I'm just like, Atticus, I love you. So this novel takes place in the south of America in the 1930s, and one of the main storylines that it follows is Jem and Scout, when their father, Atticus, takes on a case to defend a black man who has been accused of raping a white woman. So Atticus Finch is a deeply caring, moral, but also quite flawed man who's trying to do the best he can in bringing up his 2 children without a partner, but also doing what's right for the community. So this is obviously difficult for him because a lot of the things that he feels are right to do and pursue will mean that his family may become stigmatised in the community in which they live, and so he's got to kind of weigh up what the right thing to do is and how he can just be the best man all round. I really, really appreciate this about him as a character, but I also just love the way he interacts with Jem and Scout because they're quite young children, but he's aware of the fact that they're bright and perceptive and that they should be talked to as such. And I just think this is so brilliant, and it fills me with such joy to read, especially because of the time in which this novel was set. I think it's even more admirable, and I just think he is a brilliant book dad. The next question is Brave, who is the best book mum? And for this question, I'm going to answer Aristotle's mum from Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Elias Sayens. This is a YA novel that I read a few years ago and has been a favourite of mine ever since, and I actually just reread it a couple of weeks ago. And while I was rereading it, Aristotle's mum actually stuck out to me as a really prominent character, and I hadn't experienced this reading it the first time around. So in this novel, Aristotle is at quite a formative age. He's 16 and 17, and so he's going through quite a lot of changes, and he goes through quite a lot of struggles in the novel. And I really just love the way his mum acted in this and the way she treated him. You can often tell that she's concerned about him and wants to intervene, but she doesn't want to be an overbearing mother, and so you can see the way that she steps back and lets him get on with things and does offer advice and will talk to him properly when he wants to talk, but also won't try and tell him what to do and interfere too much. And I just got the sense that she cared about him so much, but she was really trying to monitor herself, which I thought was brilliant. Of course she messes up at times, but this just made me love her even more. I thought the way that their relationship was portrayed was so believable and so touching, and I really appreciate that when family dynamics are kind of presented realistically, especially in YA. So she may not be the most obvious answer for this question in the same way that, say, Mrs. Weasley from Harry Potter would be, who I also considered answering for this question, but I thought she was really brilliant in a really subtle way. Question 6 is Toy Story, name a book from your childhood that you think everyone should read. So my answer for this is A Series of Unfortunate Events by Lemony Snicket, which is a hilarious and adventure-filled kind of cliffhanging story about the fate of the 3 Baudelaire children who, after their parents die in a mysterious fire, have to go and live with their evil Count Olaf, who is set on killing them and stealing their fortune. So while this novel seems to follow quite a simple and really accessible storyline, it's actually really, really clever. I remember reading it when I was younger, and as I got towards the end of the series, seeing the way that all of these different strands and threads weave together, and it was so fascinating to me. My mind was absolutely blown. It was so clever, and I just thought this was so interesting and fun. This novel is actually quite educational as well, although this doesn't take away from the enjoyment at all. It just teaches you kind of new vocabulary or just new ideas that you may not have heard about as a child, and I just think this is really, really brilliant. I definitely think everyone should read this series. If you're a child, I think it's the perfect time to read it, but if you're older, try it as well. You will not be disappointed. Question 7 is The Incredibles. If you could have any fictional superpower or ability, what would it be? For this question, I'm going to answer with the allomancy abilities from the Mistborn trilogy by Brandon Sanderson. So this is an epic fantasy trilogy in which people who are capable of using allomancy are called allomancers, and what these people can do is kind of consume metals and burn them, and what this will do, depending on the metal, will give you different types of mental and physical abilities. When I read this trilogy, my mind was absolutely blown by this magic system. It's so unique, and I've never read anything about any kind of magic system like this before. People can also burn metals quicker, so if you wanted to burn it faster, you could have a more intense burst of power, and it's just so brilliant. There were so many brilliant fight scenes in this trilogy where people are using their allomancy. So there are a lot of different metals that you can consume, and they all have different abilities connected with them. So one may increase your physical strength, one means you can push or pull different metals that are near you, or one means that you can sense if someone else is burning a metal near you. But the one I think I'd have to go for is tin, and if you consume and burn tin, what it means is that all of your 5 senses are heightened. I think the magic system and the abilities in this trilogy are fascinating, and I would really recommend this trilogy if you're looking for a high fantasy series. Question 8 is Up, the last book that made you cry. And for this question, the answer was Tin Man by Sarah Winman. So as you've probably heard, I read this book a couple of months ago and it became an instant favourite of mine. It is so emotional and so beautiful, and I would recommend it to everyone. Please go out and read it. So honestly, I cried multiple times reading this novel. It just really, really got to me. I did cry because it made me genuinely sad at moments. It does deal with heavy topics such as grief, mental illness and physical illness, and it really, really did get to me in those senses. But I also did cry at the end, and it wasn't necessarily because I was sad or happy. You know when you just get to the end of a novel and you just feel like you've been on such an emotional ride and you're just so overwhelmed and you're happy with the way it's ended, like you feel completely satisfied and you're just like, wow, that was a lot. I absolutely loved reading about the characters all the way through, and I was really invested in them, but I also just thought the novel was so beautiful and so poignant, and so I think when I just got to the end, I just had to cry and let it out a little bit. Question 9 is Ratatouille, name a fictional food that you would like to eat. So my answer to this question is actually a drink, and it is nectar from the Percy Jackson series. I mean, it kind of has to be this because nectar by definition just tastes like your favourite thing in the world. In the first Percy Jackson novel, Percy consumes nectar for the first time, and it tastes like his mother's blue chocolate chip cookies to him, and I just thought this sounded so wonderful because it tasted so brilliant to him and also nostalgic, so I'd love to know what nectar would taste like to me. I don't know if it changes depending on the day and depending how you're feeling, but either way, I would just love to try nectar. And the final question, based on the new film that's coming out, is Coco, name a book with an international setting. For this question, my answer is another one of my favourite novels, and it is A Thousand Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseini. This is a brilliant and incredibly moving novel about two women, Mariam and Layla, who are brought up and live in Afghanistan. As well as absolutely loving so many aspects of this novel, I found it to be really educational for me. I really enjoyed learning about Afghanistan as a culture and just learning about something that was so different to the way I've been brought up. When I was reading this novel, I remember thinking to myself, this is so incredibly important and I must reread it at some point, so hopefully I might get around to doing that next year. So those were all my answers to these questions. It was so much fun to film. Thank you so much to Matt for creating this video and also tagging me in it. Like I said before, I'll tag some more people to do this video and I'll link them down below. But if you've read any of the books that I've talked about or have any good answers to these questions yourself, then please comment down below. I always love reading the comments and replying to you guys, so thank you so much for doing that if you ever do. So that's all for today. I'll see you soon with a new video. Bye.